The federal deficit. Republicans have long cried that the federal deficit is too high and we need to bring it down. And there is some merit to that. The higher it gets, the more interest we pay on it, and the harder it is to pay off. This argument is a decent one at face value. But somehow it only seems to be a problem when Democrats are in charge. I think spending, entitlement reform, growth, and the economy are all things we're going to have to be focusing on next year. From Senator John Thune, a Republican, we've got to understand that we're going to be raising the debt ceiling in perpetuity if we don't find a way to bend the curve, said Graham. Get ready for the Biden spending binge. All of these were criticisms against raising the federal deficit while Biden was in charge. However, now that Trump is in office, Republicans are trying to pass massive tax cuts for the rich under pressure from Trump, which will add $4.5 trillion to the deficit. There's just two problems for Republicans. First, they don't have 60 votes to get around the filibuster, so they need to use something called a budget reconciliation process. The problem with that, however, is that they can't use the budget reconciliation process without raising the deficit. But Republicans have an idea to get around that problem. Change the math. Republicans are proposing to switch the rules used to determine what policies add on to the deficit. They want to use something called the current policy baseline instead of the current law baseline, which means that the estimates, spending, and revenue trends assume that all policies are extended, even if law states they are set to expire on a certain date. So for the tax provisions that are expiring, Republicans basically want to ignore the cost of extending those provisions. Further, a current policy baseline would assign no cost to those extensions, even though they would in reality contribute to annual deficits. Their cost would already be baked into the baseline, even though it had not been scored earlier. Essentially, a current policy baseline could allow costly legislation to be enacted without properly accounting for it. In summary, no matter how the Republicans bring about their tax cuts, it's going to add on to the deficit. But they're simply trying to bury their head in the sand and pretend it doesn't by making up their own version of math. The Senate parliamentarian is set to make a ruling on this in the upcoming week or two.